Good evening. Friday night, 10 p.m, Bent TV. Tonight we begin with Between the Sheets, where Dean and his guests, in their bedside manner, discuss what's in a label. No fats, no fems, no Asians. What's the big deal? And then Lisa-Skye introduces Aimee Nichols, an erotic fiction author, who discusses the benefits of porn and gives her take on the benefits of 50 Shades of Grey. And then last but not least tonight, Leanne, Tennille and Joe discuss the lesbian community in Dykons, 20 years on.
Welcome to Between the Sheets, where I invite some friends into bed with me and we talk about some queer issues that are currently hot topics in our queer community. In bed tonight, I've got Stephen, Davey and Jessie. So guys, the issue we're going to be talking about is what's in a label? No fats, no femme, no Asians, or masc for masc. What's the big deal?
I think people seem to forget that they don't have to be a jackass all the time. You see it all the time where people are putting on Grindr, on Scruff, on whatever app you got, saying no fats, no femmes, no Asians, masc for masc. And look, everyone's allowed to have their own preference. That's allowed. Just the fact that if I'm contacting you and the first thing you say to me is your body really average? Why would you contact me when I look like this?
Have you gotten that?
I've straight up. 100%. I've had people send me shirtless photos of themselves and saying, I look like this, why do you think you can compete with me?
What the hell?
Yeah.
People are awful.
People are absolutely
People are awful.
horrendous. I've got friends who are, slightly effeminate. And they've had dudes literally meet them and go, no, never mind, I'd leave.
I mean, don't you think it's become a little crazy that these words and phrases have become a part of, it's like they're on T-shirts now, they're things that people say and they've just become a little bit of the queer cliche?
I feel like it's things that people have said for ever. Humans are, I feel like innately, we go for one specific thing, more or less. But I find it a problem now that we have this huge social media and everyone's connected to everything, you're able to see this stuff more. Because if you think back to dating in the old days, you wouldn't remember when that was. Pre-internet.
Yeah.
Pre-manhunt.
I remember actually ringing up a phone line and having, you've got these little descriptions of like 40 typed letters to be able to figure out what a person's like. So you didn't have room for no fats, no femme, no Asians. But now we've got that kind of room. Like personally, when I'm looking at whether it's profiles or if someone's wearing a T-shirt like that, to me that speaks to something greater. And I just choose not to interact with them. It's my easier way to do it. But I do think it's terrible that we have people using terms like this as a way to celebrate who they are, when really what they're doing is putting another person down. And it's a stereotype.
I think what's most important is to fight back against those things. So if I see someone walking down the street with like no fems on their top, I just get my denim shorts out and wear them with pride, and wear your body with pride, wear your ethnicity with pride, because the only thing that can beat down hatred and that sort of judgmental stuff is by loving yourself and loving your community.
I couldn't agree more. I do think I do the same thing, where the best way to combat all this kind of stuff is to celebrate who you are. And the beauty of it is that you don't even do it in spite of what they're doing. That's who you are, and you celebrate it, and you celebrate your queerness. But it's still terrible that people use these terms as a way to think that you're something less to them, because you are a different size, a different nationality, a different expression. And it's so interesting that when we come from where we come from, we all come through this struggle to come out, and then you come out and someone puts you down for being effeminate. That's just ridiculous, but it's the world in which we live in.
It's so, I assume you're a type A personality and a go-getter, and to hear people say, oh, I think you should combat that. In a magical world, I would love to do that, but I'm more of an insecure, timid person when it comes to things like that. And when people tell me those things on the app, instead of being like, well, F you, this is who I am, I take it offensively and it does hurt me. And I could say all day like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm a nerd, a gay nerd, whatever. At the end of the day, in my thoughts is, maybe if I was this way, I wouldn't be single.
Oh, wow. This just got
Sorry,
really
tough
deep.
love.
Oh, wow.
I tend to find myself, I think I'm the same with you, as whenever somebody's profile says straight acting, which is always a big thing, and that always gets under my skin. And if they've contacted me, my first response is always, do you suck dick?
Yeah, there's nothing straight about
Because
sucking
there's
dick.
nothing straight there.
The thing with it all as well, as my opinion of it, is the minute that I see straight acting, I think, well, you're not. Because you have to put that kind of energy and effort into a label. And the simple fact that you're doing that at that point, and you're using that as a way to express yourself, puts you in a category for me, which doesn't mean you're a certain type of person, but it just means you're making choices to express yourself a certain type of way. And it's not something I prescribe to. It's not something I'm a part of. But I do think it's a problem that's become a part of this quick flash dating that we live in. If you were in a bar and someone who came up to you that wasn't your type, you wouldn't just shut them down. You'd find a polite way to do it. You'd find a way to communicate it to them. And now everyone looks at the apps and the short-term functioning of communicating as a way to just be cruel. And you don't know when you write something how another person's going to take it, which is why using terms, like I think at the height of ridiculousness is when someone does say no fats, no femmes, no Asians, or really just, I've seen a lot of it, no Asians, sorry, not sorry, or just sorry about it, but it's just a type. And that's like turning around and saying, I'm not racist, but, and then saying a slew of racist things. It's just this entire way that ultimately you're being offensive because of the way you choose to communicate what you're saying and how you're saying it. It's not that it's your preference, it's that you chose to put that in a reference that projects negativity to the world. And my way of combating it is to go, that's the kind of person that you are, and that's the kind of box that you're going to be in, because that's the choices that you're making. Luckily, we are a part of a vibrant, wonderful, celebratory community. It's just a shame that there are certain aspects of that that seem to be quite loud or vocal or picked up by popular culture and drag other things down.
Well, that last point is totally true. Like, it just reflects the racism we have in society. It reflects the issues we have with our masculinity that we see broadly across society. It's just magnified, and we can see it on these profiles. I think, and I know it, like being my personality, I can sort of brush these things off, but I think we all need to know, like, that they don't matter, their opinions don't matter. All that matters is yourself and how you express yourself, and you just have to try your best to be happy, I guess.
It is the most important thing, and we can forget that sometimes, but who we are on the inside is what matters at the end of the day. Who you want to be and who you work towards to be is the very most important thing. Thanks for joining me here in bed, guys. It's been a pleasure. It's been Between the Sheets, and I hope that you're joining me in bed next time.
Hi there, I'm Lisa-Skye, and today I'm in conversation with Aimee Nichols. Aimee, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. It's nice to be here.
Now, what are you all about?
What am I all about? I am about a few different things, but one of the main things that I am about is writing erotic fiction, which is something I've been doing for a very long time, and something I greatly enjoy doing and have many thoughts and feelings about.
Excellent. It's a subject I don't know a lot about. Is it like any other genre in that they have kind of trends and certain popular things? And
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think more so than any other genre of writing, I think ebooks have really helped with just an absolute explosion in popularity. I remember reading an article about trends in ebook downloads, so adults downloading erotic fiction, but also downloading children's novels, because the whole thing is, you know, you might not want to sit on the train and read Harry Potter, but you can read Harry Potter on your phone or on your Kindle and no one will know. And same thing with erotica. You can be reading, you know, unicorn fisting porn and nobody needs to know.
is that one of the trends?
No, but I'm just going to cancel my plans tonight and go home and make that a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how can erotic fiction be useful to people, like, outside of just titillation?
Well, and, you know, we must never discount just the joy and the wonder of titillation as well, but I actually think it can be much in the way that like visual porn can be as well. Like it can be something that you can use like by yourself with a partner, not just for titillation, but also to learn more about what you like and what you're interested in. I know a lot of people who have had like sex-related trauma who've used erotic fiction as part of their recovery process, because it's a way of exploring their sexuality that is very, very safe. Like it doesn't get much safer than just sitting and reading a story. And also just, I think there's a lot of like really amazing writers out there working in the genre who are, you know, creating beautiful pieces of art that are also, you know, really intelligent about sex as well. And also just really hot too.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I know that there's a massive glut of erotica right now. How do you get the good stuff? Like, how do you find the gold amidst the kind of 50 shades of grey?
Very nice. There's a few different ways that you can sort of go about things. I mean, there's a lot of really good, if you're someone who reads book reviews, there's a lot of really good review sites out there, and you can search by like categories that you might be interested in and all of that kind of thing. There's also like some of the traditional erotica publishers, some of which are based in the UK, a lot of which are based in the US, are still publishing all of the anthologies and all of that kind of thing that they've been publishing for years, and that's actually often a really good place to start because they'll be you know, really well written, well put together anthologies. You'll start figuring out some authors you can follow if you like particular stories and all of that kind of thing. And as well with ebooks, the nice thing is that you can just download a sample and away you go. And if you don't like the sample, you can just delete it. So easy.
Cool. Now, I did mention 50 Shades of Grey before. There is something you alluded to off camera.
Yes.
That it wasn't entirely awful and an abomination.
I wouldn't go that far. I just have, there's one reason, there's one little thing I have that actually makes me really fond of it. Okay. Now, obviously, you know, it's a terrible piece of writing. The sex is bad and they should feel bad. And also, you know, it is completely inaccurate in so many of the ways that it portrays BDSM. Like, I'm not going to rehash those arguments because they've been made really, really eloquently. What I like about 50 Shades of Grey, two things tied together. Sorry.
We're adults, we can do this, go on.
I can pun, it's fine. Is that, you know, obviously there are a lot of like reader-like things being churned out and published when that was sort of happening, and I remember walking into Big W, I think it was one day, and they just had this massive table of porn.
Big porn?
Yeah, and it was...
discount porn?
Yeah, like $10 porn. It was great.
Bulk budget porn.
Get yourself a porny bargain. And like the whole thing was, you know, if you've loved 50 Shades of Grey, like read all of these. And some of them are, you know, writers who've been, like books by writers who've been working in that field for a very long time with very little recognition. So stuff was being reissued, and I was just like, I have just walked into, you know, this big box mum and dad kind of shop, and there's just this huge table of porn. That makes me really happy. The other thing about it that made me really happy was just, you know, on the tram on my way into work, and just, you know, every second woman would be reading 50 Shades of Grey, and I'd just be like, I love that you're reading porn on your way to work and you were completely unashamed of that. And, you know, it got people talking. Like, my family have always known what I write, but they've always just been, that's a bit strange. And then they wanted to talk about 50 Shades of Grey with me because they're like, well, that's kind of what you do, isn't it? Sure.
Like that, but better.
Yeah, but it was nice because for the first time they had a framework in which they felt comfortable asking me about my work.
See, that's good. So 50 Shades of Grey is like a puffer fish, but it's covered in waste, and it's also syphilitic, but then it smiles at you, and it's got a diamond in its tooth, and it's got all these cool mates. So you hate the puffer fish, but there is a shiny and also mates.
That's
and the mates are cool.
Well, the mates, I was going to say the mates are carp and they've all got herpes, but...
Oh, no. No. Well, your writing is definitely not carp herpes. I loved lipstick. There was like an orgasm per page. It was so good and so diverse. And so if people are looking for good queer erotic fiction, anthology is the best place to start?
I always think, well, unless you're someone who just despises short stories, I think anthologies are a really good way to go about it.
And my tip is reading them to your lover, like having each other read to you. Yeah. Especially when you're getting blown. I think that's really lovely, especially if it's really funny, cheesy erotica and being blown and then they snort. And that's, you know.
This is what, like, the novelty erotica and, like, your Chuck Tingle and all of that kind of stuff and, like, your dinosaur erotica. Oh, my God, I love Chuck Tingle.
Okay.
We probably don't have time to talk about Chuck Tingle, but he's amazing.
Wonderful.
And he just writes very, very strange novelty erotica and makes a living from it. And no one knows who he really is.
Oh, my God. Well, I do dig strange. Okay, Aimee, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching.
Welcome to Dykons 20 Years On Bent TV. Joining me today is Tennille from Joy. Hi Tennille. And Joe from Dykes on Bikes.
Hello.
And I'm Leanne from Switchboard. Before we get going, maybe we should let people who don't know what Joy is, Tennille.
So Joy 94.9 is the gay and lesbian or LGBTI community radio station here in Melbourne.
And Joe, Dykes on Bikes?
Dykes on Bikes Melbourne is a motorcycle group for lesbians, and you might have seen us at the start of Pride March every year.
Fantastic. And Switchboard is the LGBTI volunteer phone-based counselling service across Victoria. So today we're going to talk about the lesbian community. So we've called the show Dykons 20 Years On because Dykons was a bit of a term 20 years ago. Tennille, you said in the 80s it was sort of at uni.
Yeah,
about
early
Dykons.
90s, absolutely.
Yeah, how did that term sort of come about?
So I think we started looking at sort of feminist critical theory and then lesbian critical theory, and then this idea of Dykons sort of came about. So it was, I guess, a label that we could put onto these really identifiable and prominent lesbians.
So the dykes who are icons for us. So
Dykons.
Dykons.
Yeah.
The Katie Langs and the Martinas. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure there are heaps there. So I guess at that time there was pretty strong lesbian community.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it's still as strong now in 2016, Joe?
I think definitely times have changed. I know for me, I grew up in a smaller town where there weren't as many dykes or lesbians or whatever label you want to call yourself. But definitely has changed through my experience. The more people I've gotten to know and gotten out of my small town, I think times have changed, definitely.
Yeah, in what way? What way do you reckon?
I think there's a different level of acceptance or tolerance since I came out, I suppose, 20 odd years ago. And there's definitely seems to be a lot more people around that I've met, and there seems to be a lot more areas and spaces and events and everything, and it just seems a bit more common to me now. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Popular culture is kind of full of more representation as well. So, and we all know Ellen DeGeneres coming out on television kind of was this huge thing that kind of gave us this ultimate Dykon. And we're seeing more and more of that now. So yeah, it is different.
And do you think it's the same for younger women?
I think the challenge with younger women is that label. So I kind of came out at a time where it was the term was lesbian. The secondary term, or the term that was a little bit more hardcore, was dyke. And now I think there's this kind of almost aversion to using those words. So we see things like gender fluid or pansexual, bisexual, or genderqueer. And just queer. So we're seeing these different terms that I guess for younger women or for people who use those terms mean a different thing. Whereas for me, coming out, claiming that label or that identity as lesbian actually kind of meant very much lesbian.
And it came out at the feminist sort of times as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I first started out going to the dances, the separatist lesbian dances at Melbourne Uni, and you wouldn't call yourself anything but a lesbian. Like if there was a hint that even you've been anywhere near a man, you sort of weren't allowed
Yeah,
out
well,
on
the whole gold
premises.
label,
Yeah.
lesbian, and all of those sorts of terms.
That's
yeah.
right, that's right. Because I know now, as I'm sort of getting older, a lot of my friends who perhaps went to bars and spaces like that 20, 30 years ago, now sort of stay in the suburbs. So they're not as visible. So it's sort of interesting that change, you know. Joe's saying there are more people out and around, but I reckon there's a lot of other people who are quite invisible as well. So.
I think there's a difference too in the generations.
Yeah.
Like, I know myself, coming out was a big thing, so you had to actively go out and seek these spaces to find people. You know, you find your crew, and now there's a lot more spaces and a lot more events that it's a lot easier to find people and to connect with.
Yeah.
But I think also too, like just going out all the time, you tend to do that just being younger anyway, and having a good time, and you connect with people then. But as you get older, you know, life changes and you just want to stay home and
That's right.
and
right.
you know, mix within your own little crowd.
Yeah.
I think that what you're looking to connect around is different as well. So when you're younger, you're just looking for people who like to do the same things as you, and if you're going out all the time, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas as you get a bit older, you know,
Your interests probably change a bit, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily about the sexuality or whatever. It's about really who's interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
older and wiser and getting more comfortable with who you actually are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are you finding with Dykes on Bikes that that's changed over the years?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You know, we talk about Dykes on Bikes, but there's a lot of people in our club that have many different labels and a lot that don't. Like at the end of the day, we're just a mixed bunch of women from all different backgrounds that don't really identify with any kind of label. We just are women who love women and motorbikes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you don't have any sort of test that people have to go through to join the club?
No kind of test. No, there's no initiation. Nothing we can talk about anyway. So, yeah.
Nothing to talk about.
But yeah, definitely. Like, there's a whole different mix of women in our club, and it's definitely changed over the years.
So your definition of dyke, does that is that based around gender as well, or is it anyone who?
Look, to be honest with you, the whole word dyke, I think it's just, to me, it's just the name of our club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it rhymes with bike.
How good's that?
And it's always fantastic to see you going down Fitzroy Street
It's good fun.
at the beginning of the parade.
Yeah,
and you hear
it's awesome.
those engines start up. So I think it's really interesting to see how the community develops, and it'll be interesting in another 10 or 20 years
Absolutely.
to see if that we still call it that, even if sort of LGBTI is still something that
we see that evolution all the time. Yeah.
That's right. So with Joy, have you seen a change in the sort of programming things around lesbians and young women?
I think what we're seeing is a lot more lesbians or people identifying as lesbians or dykes being represented in more programming. What we're seeing from a programming perspective is more women-specific programming. So we've got a fantastic feminist show on Monday nights now as well. So there's a broader range of the women's experience being represented, and women kind of talking about that. Chicks talking footy and all sorts of different things. So not necessarily lesbian, but we've got a lot more lesbians. So I think we're up to 35 or 36% lesbian representation, which is fantastic.
It's the highest it's been for a long time.
Absolutely, and very, very deliberate to drive that. So,
So the good news is, Dykons 20 years on, we're still here. So you're watching Bent TV. Thanks to Neil, thanks Joe.